How do you build your kill team? This is the most commonly asked question everywhere I look, so I'm going to give you the powerful list that I've seen put in work at the tournaments that I've played in. Additionally, I'll point out 1-star piece of equipment. Remember, this is just a starting point, so let's get into it in 3, 2, 1. The Inquisitorial Agents have 2 main playstyles for their ancillary support options. They first will be running their Interrogator, Mystic, Pistolier, Autosavant, or Enlightener, Plasma Cannon Servitor, Deathworld Veteran, and the Skull for their main operatives. Then, for their ancillary support options, you can either go with a slow Breacher Tide, or Guardsmen that are going to put in some big damage. The Breachers go with an Axejack, Endurant, Grenadier, a Gunner of a Las Volley or Plasma choice, and then the Hatch Cutter and Surveyor. For the Guardsman choice, you're definitely grabbing the Demo Operative. Then you're going with the Hardened Veteran, the Medic, Plasma, Comms, and then the Melta or Grenade Launcher. I'll be doing a video on these guys this month. But the equipment star for this team is the Refractor Shield going on the Servitor. Paired with the Medic, it keeps him alive for a whole long time. The Chaos Cults don't get any choices, so they just get the Cult Demagogue, Blessed Blade, Chaos Devotees, Iconarch, and the Mind Witch. You need those options, the only ones you can take. The Vile Blessing equipment is my shout out here because it's just pretty fun. Pathfinders bring the Chassui, the Blooded, Drone Controller, Assault Grenadier, Medical Technician, Transpectral Interference, Communication Specialist, Weapon Experts, both of them with both weapon options, the Marksman, and then you go with a drone option. Usually it's going to be the Gun Drone and the Marker Light Drone. Generally you're just taking the Specialist because you can, and everything else is coming down to these drone choices. The equipment shout out goes to the High Intensity Marker Light. The Veteran Guardsmen take the Sergeant with the Plasma Pistol and Power Sword, the Confidant with either of the bolt gun options, the Demolition Vet, Comms, Spotter, Sniper, 3 Gunners, the Plasma Melted Grenade Launcher, as well as the Hardened or the Medic, depending on the mission, and then you go with your 4 Troopers. I talk about this team a lot in my Vet Guard guide, so go look over there for more. Star equipment here is the Rosary. The Wyrmblade is pretty fluid. You take a leader with the Power Pick and the Bolt option, as well as the Color Morph, and then your Agent option for the other one's a bit more uncertain. You can take the Sanctus Sniper if you know that you got a clear line of sight where you can set that sniper down. Otherwise, the Locust is a decent option. The Heavy Gunners are going to be grabbing the Mining Laser for sure, and then your second one is going to have the Heavy Stubber or the Seismic Cannon, depending on your choice. You're going to have the Gunners with the Grenade Launcher and the Flamer, the Icon Bearer, and then between 2 to 4 Blood Adepts depending on your agent choice. Those Blood Adepts can be really nice on something like Loot, where you need to have a lot of APL doing objectives. The star equipment here is the Climbing equipment. The Blooded bring the Chieftain with the Plasma Pistol and Improvised Blade, as well as the Grenadier, Commsman, Corin, 2 Gunners, the Melta or Grenade Launcher if you need the Blast, as well as the Plasma, the Sharpshooter, Trench Sweeper, Flensier, Butcher, and the 4 times Troopers. Usually you don't really go for the Ogren. The Ogren adds melee threat in exchange for 4 APL that you could be scoring objectives on. So if you're not confident about what you're doing with that Ogren, which can get killed pretty quickly, take those 2 Troopers instead. They play much more like Vet Guard than they do, say, a melee team. Shout out to the Sinister Trophy. The Breachers take the Sergeant with the Power Weapon and Pistol of Choice, as well as the Axejack, Endurant, Grenadier, 2 Gunners with the Plasma Gun and the Las Volley. Melta if you need that 2 APL, but the Las Volley is really, really good. The Hatch Cutter, Surveyor, and then 4 Armsmen. You don't take the Droids, which is sad, because right now they're not too good. 4 GA2 Armsmen are just better instead. The Stim is the big piece of equipment of choice here. Phobos are really variable. This is the list that I've seen work a lot, so I'm just going to tell you this one, but absolutely theorycraft your own here. People usually rock that Reaver Sergeant with the pistol and knife, the Mine Layer, the Reaver Warrior, a Marksman, and then a Veteran. The last thing can be a Helix Adept, a Voxbreaker, a Commsman. I've seen people run a variety of these. This is the closest to the 2 casual build that he ran Adepticon and did really well with and crushed my Vet Guard. People do a lot of cool things with Phobos, so take what you think is good and keep trying and come up with something, because right now this team is pretty up in the air. Shout out to the Grab Shoot equipment piece. Legionary goes all Nurgle. They have the Chosen with the Plasma Pistol and Demon Blade, the Gunner with the Plasma Gun, the Heavy Gunner with the Missile Launcher, and then you bring a Butcher. I know people really like the Anointed, but the Butcher's crits one-shotting 7-point models is really strong, and getting rerolls and everything with the 4 attacks and a 4-up is pretty consistent with that reroll. But if your opponent denies rerolls, go for the Anointed. Ultimately, you'll know your playstyle best there. The Shrive Talon really holds down objectives like a champ, so definitely bring him. And the equipment shout out here is the Suspenser system for the Missile Launcher. Oh, and bring the Balefire Acolyte, please. Intercessors go with the Assault Sergeant with the Plasma Pistol and Chainsword, the Intercessor Gunner, the Assault Grenadier, and then you can go with 2 to 3 Assault Intercessors, supplementing in an Intercessor. You go Bolt Rifles with the Vengeance Scope on anyone that can take the Bolt Rifles. This is a pretty standard build. I think the real must-take are those Bolt Rifles, and really having that Assault Sergeant with the Plasma Pistol is huge. Plus, the Gunners and Grenadiers you need those. Everything else is pretty flexible. The Auspex equipment is the big star here. The Novitiates have the Superior with Plasma Pistol and Power Weapon, the Penitent, Pronatus, Preceptor, Dialogus, Condemner, Purgatus, 2 of them, the Hospitaller, and the Exactor. This drops the Duelist and the Reliquarius. The Duelist is awful, but the Reliquarius is pretty bad, requiring to do that 4-up for its special ability. The Auto Chastiser is the equipment shout-out here. For the Exaction Squad, this is the team I have the least data on, the least thing I'm certain about, so just take this with a grain of salt. This is what I think looks good. The Proctor with the Maul and Shield, the Castigator, the Turgent, the Gunners, 2 of them with the Stubber and the Grenade Launcher, the Leashmaster, the Malacator, the Rolatum, the Vox, and the Mastiff. I don't like that Sniper, it doesn't look that good to me. Shout out to the Manacles here against Hordes, it sounds pretty funny. Again, try this team for yourself. Hopefully they get a buff here soon. Next up is the Fellgor Ravagers. We have basically all of the specialists on the team. The Iron Horn with the Plasma and the Chainsword. The Death Knell, Fluxbray, Gnarlscar, Gorehorn, Herdgoad, Mangler, Vandal, Toxhorn, and Shaman. What fun names for that team. But basically you want to be taking the Warpaint just because it's really nice for ignoring movement penalties when you're injured, because you're injured when you're in Frenzy, and so making those charges is easier. The Hearthkyn Salvagers take the Thane with the Plasma Sword and the Bolt Pistol, the Dozer, Medic, Grenadier, Gunners with the Rotary Cannon, Rail Rifle, and Plasma Beamer, the Cognitar, Luggers, and Kinlink. The Rail Rifle and Rotary Cannon slap, so absolutely take them, they're great. I did the math on the Thane Pistol, and it looks like the Bolt Pistol is the best one, but do your own math too. I like the Dozer over the Rocket Jump guy, just since the Dozer is the only unit in the game that can push enemy models around, which opens up a huge thing for your opponent to consider. It can knock a Custody off of an objective. It's really cool. Shout out to, you guessed it, the climbing equipment, especially on such a slow team. Hunter Clade, not super confident about this since the nerf, but I think it's pretty much the same. The nerf is just amount of operatives, not anything to the operatives, so here's what is generally good here. 1 of each of the Sicarians, total of 4. Vanguard Alpha with the Arc Pistol and Power Weapon, Ranger Surveyor, the Ranger Gunners with the Plasma Cavalier, and then the Arc Rifle or the Arquebus on preference, the Vanguard Dictat, and then the Vanguard Shock Trooper. This team is pretty similar to what is the pre-nerf. Really, it's Vanguard everywhere except for Gunners and Surveyors. The Zicarians are all pretty good, so make sure to just take the ones that you know are going to be important for your situation that you're in. And so shout out to the Cerberus Skull. Letting you do a free mission action is great for 2 EP. The Elucidian Starstriders have a predefined list, so nothing exciting to talk about here. The grenade equipment is really nice. This team's pretty cool. The Kasrkin have the Sergeant with the Plasma Pistol and Chainsword, the Medic, the Demo, or a second Trooper. You get 3 Gunners, the Plasma Gun, Melta, and GL. Overall, I recommend those. The Sharpshooter, Recon Trooper, Vox Trooper, and then a regular Trooper. I have a guide on this team, so I won't say much more than that. Go check out that video. Shout out to the new knife equipment that basically saved this team from being really stinky. The Corsairs bring the Fellark with the Neurodisruptor, the Gunner with the Shredder for the Hordes, or Blaster for Elites, the Duelist, Hunter, Shade Runner, Current Fate Dealer, Wayseeker, Soul Weaver. Gosh, again, cool names. No Heavy Gunner here. The Shredder is just really good in the Hordes. Shout out to the Plasma Grenade on the Shade Runner, which is just a horrifying blast weapon with a lot of reach there. The Void Dancers take a lead player and 5 regular players. One of them is going to get a Neuro Pistol, one of them is going to get the Fusion Pistol, and the rest are going to have the Shuriken Pistols. Then you're going to have a Shadow Seer with the Shuriken Pistol, and then the Death Jester. In terms of the blades, you're going to be taking the Kiss Blade against 7 Wound Horde teams, where you're going to go for the Blade for the rest of them. Shout out to Toxin Rounds. Next up is the Farstalker Kinband. You're going to be taking the Killbroker with the Kroot Rifle, the Bow Hunter, Cold Blood, Cut Skin, Heavy Gunner with the Skinner. Take that Skinner. The Hounds, 2 times of them, the Long Sight, Pistolier, Stalker, Tracker, and the Warrior with a weapon of your choice. Now that they get their whole box contents, you can just take everyone on that box. The Skinner is definitely that must-have, and shout out to the Ritual Blade for the leader, making him somewhat of a real melee threat. Hierotek Circle takes the Chronomancer with the Entropic Lance right now. It's really strong with that slow ability. The 2 times Plasma Sights, the Prentech, the Immortal Despotech, the 2 times Immortals, and then you might take another Immortal or a Deathmark. You can get use out of that teleport, then go for it. Probably will score you a victory point if you can pull it off. Otherwise, take that Immortal. People take a Tesla versus Horde sometimes, but the Gauss is generally the best all-around weapon. Shout out to the Arcshock Projector, which makes the splash on that Tesla go up to 3 inches, which can be pretty nasty. The Commandos take them all now because of the buff. Huzzah! You basically are going to be taking the Knob with the Chopper probably against most things except the Horde. The Claw has that 7 crit, which is nice. Otherwise, the Climbing Rope, again, equipment of choice. I love climbing ropes. Sorry. Listen. Gellarpox, once again, have a set list, so you're not going to be choosing anything here except your equipment options, which are operatives. People usually go for the Curse Might, but I've seen people run those little nasty drone guys as well. The Ork Kommandos have 2 different builds. Firstly, you'll be taking the Sorcerers, the required 3 of them, 1 with the Warp Flame, the other 2 with the double melee. And then you'll probably be taking maybe 4 Thanagors and a Rubric Gunner, but 6 Thanagors is really aggressive. No Rubric Marine there. The Thanagors get the blades, no need for that pistol. And shout out to the Arcane Robes. Last but not least is the Hand of the Archon. They're super flexible right now. The big thing to decide on here is the leader with that AP2 blast pistol or the power weapon, depending on if you want to be in melee more. Some folks love the Dark Lance just because it can be perceived as this big threat, but otherwise I recommend that Splinter Cannon, as the kind of threat projection that the Dark Lance offers takes some finesse. Otherwise, you're just sort of standardly picking off of the specialists. So you'll be taking the Agent, the Duelist, the Disciple, the Exilicant, the Flayer, and the Gunner with the Blaster or the Shredder for hordes. And it's that heavy gunner choice, and the Splinter Assassin. Shout out to the Plasma Grenade once again. So that's all the teams, but why did I mention these lists in particular? Well, they're coming from tournaments I've played at, top player conversations I've seen around, my own takes, and my local meta. This game is not solved. The meta is a mess, and people claim it's solved, but it's really not. People run crazy stuff and make wins happen. Phobos were said to be useless, and yet people still found ways to make them work. Ultimately, learn your team, play them a lot, and make choices that match your experience. These are just starter lists to get you going that people have made work. You can make your own list and shine. That's all from me. So thank you for watching my little hobby channel. I'm almost to 1,000 subscribers, so I'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button. Once I hit 1,000, I can get a couple of pennies from YouTube a month to sort of support this hobby, but if you want to support me further, I have a Patreon now, and thanks for Kyle for being my first and only. Please leave your favorite lists below that I didn't mention, and I'm happy to answer any questions. See you next time.